Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Brian. Today I want to go over with you folks another Festool Systainer that I have grown to really enjoy, and I think it's been another good addition to my shop. Almost a year ago I did a loadout unboxing, or whatever you want to call it, of the Festool Systainer storage toolbox, and I use it to kind of store all of my EDC tools that I use, which is in this one. So I've done a review on this one. I can link it down below, but it's just I just keep everything that I use, you know, if I have to go to a house or someone asks me to go hang a picture, whatever it is, pretty much everything in there is anything that I would ever need on a daily basis. So I enjoyed using that so much, I bought another one, and I have converted this to my electrical toolbox. So these are great because you can segregate kind of by project everything that you're going to use for a specific project and keep everything in one place. So this is my electrical version, and I'm going to show you guys what I keep in my electrical version because I've used this a lot recently since I've been doing the camper. I make a lot of these DIY portable battery boxes, so I use a lot of electrical connectors and wiring and soldering guns and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you guys what I keep in mine, and we'll go from there. Stay tuned. Okay, so here's my electrical version of my Festool Systainer storage toolbox. So very reminiscent of your grandfather's toolbox back in the 40s, but these come in really handy and you can really keep organized with these things. So up top you have two lids that open up, and in here is where I keep most of my electrical connections. So I've got a bunch of these what they call them piggyback connectors. I use these a lot when I'm connecting to my 12-volt batteries. You can hook in your main power supply on the bottom, and then coming up top you can connect it to your solar input. So these come in real handy. I haven't used these very often, but I'm glad I found them because I use these all the time now. So these are great. Keep those in there. I've got some wire clamps, cable clamps, a lot of ring terminals, ranging from 10 gauge all the way up to 20 gauge, but just a whole bunch of ring terminals. And I got some wire nuts. I don't use these a whole lot, but I like to keep them in here in the event that I do need them. Over here I've just got a small case of, I got some electrical tape, lighter for my heat shrink. I've got a little USB monitor, so you can plug this into a USB outlet and see how many volts it's being output. So that thing's pretty cool. And then just a wall outlet tester. So I keep that in here. And again, if you guys don't know anything about these Systainers, these are completely configurable. So you can buy these smaller containers, you can buy these larger containers. You don't have to use these containers at all. You can just use this whole top as an open area, as an open space. But everything's configurable. You can build this to your liking. Over here, I've got, in this bin, I've got a couple of wire taps. I don't like to use wire taps, but if I do, I have them. I've got some fork connectors. These are really useful for connecting wires to fuse panels. So I've got a bunch of those, and then I've got all of your standard, your spade connectors, just your male and female spade connectors, all up in here, ranging from, again, 10 gauge, the yellow, all the way up to 18 to 20 gauge in your red. So up top is where I use is where I gravitate to the most, because it's what I'm putting on the end of my wires, whatever I'm connecting to. So again, sky's the limit on how you want to configure these things, but this is how I do on my electrical storage box. So once you get to this stage, you can open them up again, and we get into more storage options. And we'll just start from up here. So up here in this bin, I've got all of my heat shrink tubing, all different sizes, different colors, but I keep that in there because I use that a ton. In this bin, I've got a bunch of alligator grips to put on the end of wires, and I've got some bigger heat shrink tubing in here that I don't use a whole lot of. This bin I think is overkill, but I've got all of my fuses in here. So up top is just mainly all my 5 amp fuses, but below it I've got everything from 3 amp all the way up to 45 amp, which I'll never use, but I keep all of my fuses in this storage bin. This bigger bin down here, I just keep some spare wire. This is, I prefer 16 gauge for what I use, but this is just 16 gauge wire. And of course, an electrical toolbox would not be complete without zip ties. And then I've got just another tester. I've got a couple of razor knives, and then some more wiring down there, just some odds and ends, a little spare wrap of wire, I guess. Over here, I've got my main tools that I use when I'm doing any type of electrical work. And if you guys can spare 20 bucks, 40 bucks actually, here's two tools that I couldn't recommend more that you buy for wiring. And one is automatic wire strippers. These things have been an absolute lifesaver. I've had these a couple of years. These just make wiring so much faster, easier, safer, better. And these are only like $18. I'll put a link down below, but I use these on every job now, and I can't imagine life without these things. So to pair this, get yourself a good pair of ratcheting crimpers. And again, this is a no-name brand, picked off Amazon. I think these were maybe 20 bucks, but you've got your 18 to 20 gauge, 14 to 16 gauge, and then your 10 to 14 gauge jaws right here. So you can use any size connectors that I have. So for your 10 gauge, you're gonna put it back here. For your 18 to 20 gauge, you'll put it up front. And they're color coded for your convenience, but these make crimping those connectors onto the wire, again, so much faster and so much better. So if you're new into wiring or you haven't been using these, get yourself these two tools. They will be a life changer, I promise. So those are the two that I use. And then just some cheap wire cutters. Use those obviously all the time. And here's just a $10 soldering iron that I use, and it gets the job done just fine for the little jobs that I do. Now, I'm not an electrician, so I don't need a huge gun, but this works just fine, and it's small enough that it can fit in this box, and I can carry it around with me. I got a little Greenlee socket driver here. Then I've got a butane torch, and I use this sometimes for heat shrink. I typically prefer to use just a big lighter because it's not as hot, but these do come in handy in a pinch, and especially if it's real windy outside, these work great, and they're refillable, and it gets the heat shrink done just as good as this lighter, but this doesn't burn quite as bad. You gotta be careful with these. So I keep that in there, and then I just keep a little mini set of pliers in there for sometimes pulling out these connectors if I have to, but that's what I keep in there. And then this container, I keep my solder, and then I keep my liquid electrical tape in there. So I use that all the time. And then over here, I've got some more little doohickeys. These are actually really nice. If you do have to tap into a wire, these are called posi taps. And these things are so much better than any other tap that, at least in my opinion, that I've been able to find. But they're called posi taps, P-O-S-I-T-A-P, posi taps. But these are excellent for tapping into wires, so I keep these on hand. Then I've got some grounding nuts in there if I'm doing electrical work in boxes. And then these are some waterproof wire nuts. So there's a chemical in here. When you screw this onto the wire nut for outdoor applications, it actually seals that wire inside because there is liquid in here. So don't use these a whole lot, but when I do, they're good to have in here. So that, in a nutshell, is everything that I use on a daily basis, I guess you could say, that I'm never needing anything else. And again, I'm not an electrician. I'm not wiring a home. This is for the items that I use the most, for the items that I build, like my DIY, my battery boxes, my portable battery boxes, my camper. Everything that I ever needed, I can keep in here, and it stores up. You got to get these put in here. So let's stick it up here. There we go. And now this thing is locked, ready to go. So all of my electrical stuff that I ever use is in this one storage unit, and I think it makes it a lot more organized. I know where everything is, and I know where to go if I need something. So that's why I use this. And just quickly, here is what I consider my EDC toolbox from and there goes a drill. This is just, I've done a video on this, but here's my EDC tools for everything. So I can post a link down below, but these two do nest on top of each other. If you want to carry them together, it's a little heavy, but they do nest, so you can store them together, and they lock together. So you can carry both of these together if you wanted to, but it's not light. So this is my recommendation if you've got specific projects that you want to keep all your tools and all your small miscellaneous items in one place. Try out one of these. I think they come in really handy. They're good quality, and they just make storage and organizing so much faster and easier, in my opinion. So guys, that is it for my electrical version of my Festool Systainer storage toolbox. Take care.